Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if this is your first time stopping by. Today we are going to be doing a review of everything I read and the decks that I worked with and played around with in the month of October. If that is interesting to you, then definitely please stick around. We're going to be getting right into it. Before we do though, just a quick reminder, hello, I am a deck creator and an author. I will throw up a graphic so you can see where you can find my work if you are so inclined. Unicorn's Journey Oracle is progressing nicely and we are ahead of schedule still, so very pleased about that. That will be coming to my Etsy store in the not so distant future, but I definitely want to make sure that all of my backers have had a chance to have their decks ship and get speedily on their way to them before we throw the extra stock up in the Etsy shop. So stay tuned for that. But you will be able to get it in the Etsy shop soon. Anyways, with all that said, let's get into it. So if you are new to these monthly deck reviews, in here I'm going to share everything I worked with, whether it was for my monthly member readings, whether it was for my personal practice, all that kind of stuff. So let's kick off with my bedtime practice because this is fairly static. So just a quick little update. I simplified in October. October has been a very busy month. I feel like there's been a lot to do, both in getting ready for Unicorn's Journey Oracle at my fulfillment center and just a whole lot of things going on, it seems like, all at once. So I simplified for October. Also, there's something about the days growing shorter and then like the mornings being darker and the nights getting darker earlier. I feel like my energy just takes a little bit of a dip around this time of year, which is perfectly normal, but I've really been enjoying just sticking with this combo lately. And this one is my mainstay, y'all know by now. The Unicorn Tarot, again, I forget the creator name and I don't keep the little white book in here, but this is what the backs look like. This deck's been around for ages and I just love pulling a single card from this at bedtime. You can definitely hear me talk about this. I won't belabor it too long here because I just say the same thing every time, but this just remains a really nice little mainstay for me. But I have been really enjoying incorporating my own Unicorn's Journey Oracle into my bedtime practice. And y'all, this is such a delight because I don't know if you know this. I've talked to other deck creators who've had this experience, but when you create your own deck, sometimes you can feel a little bit kind of like almost funny about using it yourself. It's really hard to describe. I love using Unicorn's Journey Tarot and I keep the mini with me all the time. But what I find about Unicorn's Journey Tarot, and I mean, I love pairing them, obviously. But what I find about the tarot is I know it so well that I feel like it's easier for me to, when I'm reading for myself, sort of gloss over the message. But what I really like about the Unicorn's Journey Oracle is that it doesn't let me do that. So even though I created this deck and I wrote all the prompts that are in the guidebook and all the journal prompts, I feel like it calls me out the way that I want it to every time in a way that is really great. So it doesn't let me skirt the issue quite the same way. Now, Unicorn's Journey Tarot has the self-worth message and is very uplifting, or the self-worth advice, I guess. And we also have that in this deck, but the thing that sets this apart from my bedtime practice are the journal prompts down underneath the self-worth message. So for example, this is determination, and it might ask, how can I stay committed even when challenges arise? What can help me tap into determination? Or what small step can I take today to keep moving forward? These function really nicely as a 3-card spread, like tarot spread or even oracle spread. But I really like them for just a bedtime reflection or journaling. So sometimes I write down my answers to one or more of the prompts. Sometimes I just sit and think about them. But either way, this works really great as a bedtime pull for me. So I've just been really enjoying this. And again, that's kind of extra delightful because sometimes we're just too close to our own work and it makes it harder to use it, but not the case with this one. And I've been really enjoying that at bedtime. So that's pretty much sticking. I did try, I think I maybe updated about this in my September monthly deck review, but I tried pulling back in the Seasons of the Witch oracles, and for whatever reason, they're just not clicking for me right now. I think I did talk about that before. Maybe that will change. I did a whole video where I tried to sort of mix them together into one deck to see how that would feel, and it didn't even feel right by the end of the video, which you can go watch that whole process. If you want to see me do that, you can watch that. That video is up on the channel. But right now, I'm liking simple, and I cycle a lot. I will likely change this up or maybe just add something to it in the not too distant future. But for now, this is like perfectly matching my energy at the moment. I really love working with those. I should also give a little honorable mention to the current Unicorn Fam deck study deck because I have been doing work with this. This is the Deviant Moon Tarot. The reason I'm working with this little mini, which I don't actually intend to keep long-term in my collection, I think this is going to be rehomed in the future. The reason I'm working with this is because I actually have my full-size borderless Deviant Moon in my envelope readings for the year. So I've got a couple more months of envelope readings, but let me show you, actually I can show you that because that's also something I work with, but for the study I've been working with this little mini, which has actually worked out really great because it makes it pretty portable. But I've got my deck split into different chunks depending on where we're at with the study and what we're doing. So this has been really convenient to just kind of huck in my bag and carry around with me while we're doing the study. But I've also done some activities with it in accordance with the study, and that's been really fun. I will report back after the study is completed, which we are studying it all the way through October and November. So for my November deck review, I'll be able to give you a better idea of sort of how this whole study went for me personally, and we can chat more about that. But for now, this is definitely something that I have been working with, and I wanted to share that. Now, as a bit of a refresher, I'll share with you my October envelope readings. So the way that I do these is I preload these at the end of the year for the following year. And I decided to not seal my envelopes for this year so that I can just continue to reuse the envelopes, but I like doing one for the month and one for the full moon. So I used stickies so I would know exactly when the full moon was so that I know when to pull this reading out. And then I'm just going to continuously, that's the goal anyways, I'm just going to keep reusing these envelopes so that I don't have to get fresh ones every year. Just a little bit of a reduce, reuse sort of situation. But I have not peak-seed at all, except for when the time comes. So here's what I've been using this month. So let's take a look at my reading together. So I have been, for my month, I pull a Mons Tarot or Little Monsters Lenormand reading. So for October, I had Mice, Key, and Cross. I feel like this really made a lot of sense to me. I had a lot of little worries, but ultimately what sort of helped to kind of get me through that is to recognize that yes, it's going to be a bit of a burdensome month. There's a lot of things to get done, but it's also temporary. And so this felt like it kind of matched the energy of the month. There was a lot of little worries, a lot of little concerns about possible hiccups, such is the case when you're creating decks and putting a product out into the world. There's always like, oh my gosh, this is going to go wrong, or that is. And so I spent a lot of October in this energy. So this definitely lined up. And then I've been doing a bit of a light shadow sort of scenario. So this is where you'll see my Deviant Moon. So my Nine of Swords, of course, for my Mons Tarot to represent, again, that worry space that I was in. But this feels like a little bit of a reminder, like I've got my teddy, things are actually okay. I just am letting my fears get the best of me. And then the Deviant Moon card, which brings more of the shadow energy, we have Justice and a reminder that while things and systems are outside of my control, and sometimes they feel like they're like the systems of the world are not working in my favor, that again, this is something that I can't control, so I don't need to give it a lot of my energy. And so that really helped me in October. And then my word of the month was empathy. This comes from the Diviner Definitions Oracle, which I put into play coupled with, what did I pair it with? And it was such a good pairing. Oh my goodness. Oh goodness, I'm forgetting now because there's so many cards that I can take the leftovers and still work with them. But anyways, that was my October card. And then I've been using Wisdom of the Divine Feminine and Wisdom of the Shadow in pairing as well for this light shadow combination. And I like using the shadow and the Divine Feminine kind of in concert. So reflection that leads to, like, these work together. They are like balanced. So reflection that leads to more sovereignty. Again, a lot of reflective time in October. So this all played out pretty much exactly as I would have imagined. And I tend to pull the cards or the envelope just at whatever point in the month I feel like I want to just check in. And I put this away funny, but that's okay. But that was my main October. And then what I've been doing for my full moon is I've been working with the old, is this called the Old Ways Tarot? Tarot of the Old Ways, Old Style Tarot, something. Anyways, I had the Knight of Wands, again, lots and lots and lots of things going on. And then I've been pulling the 3 Mysteries of Mary cards. So the Mysteries of the Black Matana, where I had the Hierophant, which is the holy tree, or sorry, the 5 of holy trees, excuse me, so 5 of Wands. And then I had for the Mysteries of Mary, the Wheel of Fortune, the spinning wheel. And then for the Mysteries of the Red Madonna, I had the Hearth Keeper of Swans. And so with this reading is more for me about sitting with the guidebooks that I work with for each of these and sort of sitting with the messages. It's just a reflective time. I don't spend a lot of time journaling, but I take in whatever comes through with that combination of cards. But those decks I've been working with monthly. I added the Mysteries of Red Madonna and just shuffled and put a card into each of my remaining envelopes once this deck came in. I think I tried something else. I think I tried to work with it for a bedtime pull or something, and it didn't work out that way, but it did work out beautifully for my full moon practice. And it fits in, like, just harmonizes really nicely with the other Mary decks. So yeah, I really like these. Definitely still working with those. I'll put that back there. And then a change to my Sunday practice. I was trying to work with these Psalm cards, but y'all, I have an update about this deck. This is going to be moving back out of my collection. I was honestly really disappointed. I was very excited about this, and I talked about how amazing it was to have like 100 cards where it's not heavy-handed, like you're not seeing scriptural verses on here, but they do reference psalm numbers. And then there's this artwork, and I thought, oh, how fun. And there's some information in the front of this book about working with the Psalms with tarot, or like with this deck with tarot. And so it was clearly, I thought, going to come with a more, I don't know, open, expansive approach, which it does. I feel like it does do. The problem I ran into is that I was only pulling a card a week. And what I would do is I would pull the card and go, okay, well, this is Psalm 45:4. And before I would go into this book, I would actually go to a translation of the Bible that I know and trust, and I would look up this verse. And while I haven't been doing this practice for very long and only one card a week, I've already found 3 or 4 cards that were wrong. Where, like, for example, it would say 45:4, but when you get into the guidebook here, when you look at the art and then you get into the guidebook for 45:4, and then you compare that to a translation of the actual text, it's referencing, like, say, 45:3. And so the numbering system wasn't correct. I found that a few different times. One time there was a psalm like verse that wasn't even in a current modern translation. Maybe it's in an older translation. I don't know. But it really soured me on the deck, because it's not like the message itself wasn't valid. It was that if you're going to reference the specific number, then it should match. You know, I think that was, I don't know if that was an editing oversight or I feel like it should have been caught and fixed, bottom line. So I was really disappointed by that. And unfortunately, if I go by the correct verse, like the one on the number, then the artwork doesn't make sense. The message in the guidebook didn't make sense. And I was like, okay. Now, if you're only working with these cards with the book, that's great. It's just not going to be accurate. It's not going to accurately align. And the one in specific that I remember that came up, I can't remember exactly which one it was, but the one that really threw me, see, they have the actual verses in the back too, but the one that really threw me, like the art was something very uplifting, and the verse number actually pointed to something a little bit darker. And I was like, huh? Like it just, and so the artwork didn't match, the verse didn't match. And again, the whole point of this for me was to try to get to know these and see like what I thought about this as a practice, and it did not work. So I pulled this out of my practice and put it aside so that I could remember to update y'all. But if you were thinking of this as something that might be accurate, if you're interested in the accuracy, I would not recommend this on that point, just because there was too many errors for me to find too quickly into working with this. If I'd been using this, if I'd gone through all the cards and checked them all and only found 3 errors, that's one thing. But I found 3 errors out of like maybe 7 or 8 card pulls, and I'm like, that's too high of a ratio. Like I'm done with that now. So that's moving out of my practice. But I digress. Let's talk now about the decks that I used in my monthly member readings, because it was such a fun month. Oh my gosh. Okay, so we worked with all the spooky things, and it was so fun. So literally this whole pile. Let's talk about it. Okay, so first of all, I worked with, during the member readings, the Bohemian Gothic. This is the newest edition, which I want to say is the 4th. I really don't like these wooden boxes. Like, I like them, they're cool, but they're just like not very practical. Yeah, this is the 2023 edition, which I want to say is the, does it say what number of edition it is on here? I don't know that it does. But anyways, I really, really enjoy this backing. I really enjoy this edition. I went back and forth on it for a while because the cold foil stamping is a little more heavy-handed than I prefer. And at some angles, it totally makes it difficult to sort of see the image, I think. But in natural light, what I found is in actual practice, not under my studio lights, like on camera, it looks great. But like the way that I'm holding it so you can see it well, where I'm sitting in my viewing angle, which is different, it's very obscured. But what I found was in normal lighting, like when I don't have all the extra light on the cards, it doesn't really do that the same way. So it's actually more readable and viewable even at different angles in normal, I'll call it normal lighting conditions. So, but what I love about this edition is that the card art changes that have been made seem to bring it more in alignment with, it made it more readable to me. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it felt a little bit more in alignment with the RWS in a way that made these scenes click better for me. I guess that's the best way to express it. And I really enjoyed that aspect of this edition. When I compared the two side by side, because I also have a copy of the 3rd edition of this deck, I think, that doesn't have the cold foil stamping. When I compare the two editions, I preferred the art choices in this one. So pulling this out for monthly member readings was actually super fun. It read very, very well, and I'm really pleased because I almost rehomed this, and I'm glad that I didn't. So that is the Bohemian Gothic, really good for this time of year. I think it brings the spooky vibes, and it was so fun to read for my members with that. The Oracle deck that's in the same fabric bag is something that gets used a little bit more throughout the year, and that is the Oracle of Oddities. This is the ones that came in 3 separate packs. So there was like a 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. Like, I don't know if it was called edition or what, but each one was mostly different with only a couple of overlapping cards. I really enjoy working with this, and it paired well with everything on the table, with the exception, I would say, well, actually, I guess it paired best with the Zombie Tarot, Bohemian Gothic, Zombie, maybe Silver Acorn. I can't remember if I actually paired it with Silver Acorn. I don't think so. But I love this Oracle. Of all of Claire Goodchild's decks, this one is absolutely my favorite. I love the combination of the keywords and the artwork. The artwork always speaks to me. Whereas the tarot, the Antique Anatomy Tarot and the Memento Mori are trickier for me. But plus I love that there's the chakra cards in here. I don't get stumped when I'm working with this deck. I always know what it's saying to me, and I love that. But this does get used more throughout the year, whereas I tend to pull out Bohemian Gothic mostly October-ish. But this one gets a lot of play. So that was fun. It was fun to read with them together too. And then one of the darlings of the day was the Boo Tarot. Y'all, if you ever hear of Celia Melville coming out with an edition of this deck on better cardstock, I might repurchase it because it is the cutest darn thing, but I get so mad at the cardstock every time. Like, the warp is like insane. The shuffle is, oh, it's so terrible. I say it every year when I talk about this deck. And yet, despite how awful I feel like that squishy, floppy shuffle is and the warping, this deck, I continue to look forward to working with it every year. And in spite of this, this was definitely the darling, I think, during monthly member readings, but also this was also the darling in my personal practice this month. In fact, I used this 3 out of 4 weeks. Was there 4 weeks in October? I used all but 1 week. I used this deck. I find it so absolutely delightful. I love the images. It's so Halloween, but in a cozy way. It's cozy Halloween. And it doesn't feel spooky in a dark way. It feels spooky in an adorable way. And I freaking love playing with this deck. I look forward to it every year, even though I get mad at the cardstock every year. But I love it. I absolutely love it. And obviously it's getting plenty of use despite all of that because I continue to do it. I love the little ghosties. I love their cozy vibes. There's just some notes that this deck hits that none of my other sort of spooky season or Halloween season decks quite hit. I have other ones that are kind of cute, but this is like the epitome of like adorable. And I love the little hollow details on the backs, and I love the little sparkles on the Major's ghosts. But like, really, if this ever came out on a better cardstock, I would be heavily tempted to purchase a new copy. It's a shame. The cardstock is a shame, but I love this so much. And this fabric that Peggy found around the time that this deck was coming out, I think I was waiting for my copy. She found this fabric, and the ghosties with the little colored lines, those ones I think glow in the dark. So I know some of the ghosties glow in the dark. I think I don't know if it's the colored lines themselves that glow in the dark. I think it is. Or if it's the little white parts. I'm not sure, but this fabric totally glows in the dark, and it's super cute. It's perfect for the Boo Tarot. It's perfect for the Boo Tarot. Love it. But this is such a fun deck, and it was so fun to read with in member readings. Plus, I used it a ton myself. The Zombie Tarot is always a favorite. Actually, I'm going to wait on that one because I have something else to share about that one. Let's talk about the Silver Acorn. This is like such a lush Halloween / late autumn deck. It is so whimsical and sweet. It stood in this month in my member readings as my Rider-Waite-Smith clone. I usually bring in something that's very strong Rider-Waite-Smith composition into my monthly member readings. I've talked about that before, but I like to have something a bit pippish. I like to have something that's very RWS because I find that sometimes I need or lean into wanting something a little bit more stripped back and less creative visually to answer certain types of questions. And this one is just a fun one. If you're just looking for, if you know the Rider-Waite-Smith composition and you want something with all the like pumpkin spice season vibes, I feel like this is the one. It's just so dang cute. So this was really fun to pull out for member readings. It didn't get as much play as the others, but then again, my Rider-Waite-Smith clone style decks never do. This is on high quality luxury cardstock. It is a little oversized though. Like it's a bit of a stretch. Like the Oracle of Oddities is a standard tarot. And so you can see we're quite a bit longer, like it's a stretch. But it's a really nice black core cardstock. And so I actually did a lot of side shuffling, I feel like, of this one, and it worked beautifully because it's got that bend. So I did a lot of that during my member readings because my hands get tired. I mean, I'm doing readings for like this last month. I think I was doing them for 7.5 hours or so. So I'm streaming for like a full day. So my hands do get tired with the shuffling. And so I ended up doing this one sideways because even though it's on lovely cardstock, it is a stretch to do it the other way. But it works fine. And again, it's really high quality cardstock. So this one's always a fun one to pull out as well at this time of year. And then this one, this is so funny. This was my other Halloween deck that I had in our list for monthly member readings, but I literally thought I had left it out. Still to this day, one of my favorite bag matches of all time. I thought I had decided to leave this one out this year, but then I got partway into my list of readings to do and it was on the list and I was like, oh, I did include it. So I went and grabbed it. And this one just stole the show again. This is one of those decks that is such fun to read with because, oh, this is the Trick or Treat Tarot. I don't know if I said, this is the Trick or Treat Tarot by Barbara Moore. This one is absolutely such a blast to read with because you have the like Llewellyn fun scenes in each card, obviously, that are for the deck, but each card plays with some sort of like story or fandom. Like here we have lightsabers in the Two of Swords. We have, I don't have the right vision here. I'm not going to know all the pop culture references, but I know a lot of them. Like there's Little Mermaid and the Nine of Cups. Lots and lots of like, that's an Elsa moment, I'm pretty sure, and the Queen of Swords. And so you have all these like pop culture references. And so you can play with both layers. Like this is the wolf from Little Red Riding Hood, and there's the tattered cloak and the Little Red Riding Hood's basket, right? And so you have these other layers that actually, I think that's Merida in the Four of Wands, that you can work with. Like that's a Dr. Seuss moment. So like it gives you two layers of things to work with. The scene that's in front of you and just the fact that it's totally trick-or-treat vibes, obviously, like Halloween vibes. And then also that pop culture layer. If you know the pop culture reference, you can totally work that into your reading and it just makes it very dynamic and fun. And I don't know of any other deck you could really do this with the same way. Like clearly a Romeo and Juliet moment for the Two of Cups. And just absolutely so fun to read with this deck. I adore it. Like there's the Joker. Like it's fabulous. What else could you do this with, Wizard of Oz? What else could you do this with besides a Halloween Trick or Treat Tarot, Mr. Rogers, with like everybody in costume? It's so much fun. So this is a really great one if you want something like really specifically like Trick or Treat Halloween, classic, like secular, you know, dress in costume and go trick-or-treating Halloween. This is such a vibe and it's so fun. I would take this to, if I was the type to do readings at like Halloween parties and stuff, this would be such a great pick for that. It would be so perfect. So really, really fun. I love that this exists and it's a joy to play with every year. The Zombie Tarot. Yes, I did pull this out in the midst of member readings. I didn't work with the Zombie Oracle this year. Usually I work with them together, but I worked with just the tarot and as always, so fun to read. I end up singing its praises every single year because I think the meanings in here are just such a freaking blast to get to with all these images and the way that their take on the meanings is really great. There's a lot of humor. There's a lot of like irreverence. I love this Queen of Swords with my entire soul. I love her so much. There's just some really great things happening in here. But I had some extra fun playtime with this month. So every month, my Badass Unicorns and I get together and we do what we call a tarot test drive. Now, typically, this was an unusual month and it worked perfect because I had a very, very mind busy month, I guess you could say. And test drives, typically we come up with a really unique practice. We maybe build a spread together. It's all very like symbolically rich and we play and we learn and we just explore a deck. Well, this month we pulled the Zombie Tarot into that. So I did read with this in member readings, but then the Badass Unicorns and I got together Only, instead of building a whole practice around the zombie tarot, and not everybody in the chat that joined us this month was even into this deck specifically. So what we ended up doing, and it was so stinking fun, was we ended up playing a solo role-playing game together. So this is actually the character sheet I printed, and the game is called Xylite, and we played this from start to finish during our tarot test drive month with the Baddest Unicorns, and this was so fun. I did not really show much about this game in my solo RPG video, which I will link down below for you if you're curious. It was such a fun video to make. This is a game that I only own digitally, so I didn't have a physical copy to show, but Xylite is like a zombie apocalypse survival game, basically. So we created as a group, we created a character. Our character's name was Axel. And we had the dice that we needed. You have a health counter. The goal of the game is to basically survive 4 weeks. And if you make it to the 7th day on the 4th week, you get rescued, basically. But we use this deck. It actually calls for a playing card deck. And so we took the major arcana out. We took the pages out once I remembered. We took the pages out and we just did a 1-for-1 correspondence. So if it was like a wands, it would be, or sorry, if it was a clubs card, it would be a wands card, or vice versa. Cups or hearts, pentacles or diamonds, and spades or swords. And it was awesome. It was so fun. So we did die on the 3rd day of week 2. We had a few unfortunate experiences that screwed us up. We really had a hard time getting food. And then when we did get food, we sort of gambled it away. And we maybe beat up a priest who was just trying to do good in the world. And we made some dark decisions, but it was fun because we made decisions as a group. And we had a little companion named Kathy, but Kathy turned on us when we ran out of food and we're a little bit low on health. And she just turned on us, so she had to go. And it was fun and hilarious, and it was great. But what ultimately took us down was there was a zombie horde. That was the 10 of Swords. And you really should try to run, but if you're too exhausted, if you've lost too much health, you can't run, or you have a low chance of succeeding at running away. So we had to fight them. And we literally took down, like, this is actually our final like little battle here. There were 10 zombies. We took down all but one before we finally succumbed to the zombie horde. But it was a lot of fun. So we played that. It was fun to play sort of a shorter run solo game and to do it in a group setting where we kind of all we made decisions cooperatively. Like, we were all Axel. It was great. And we figured out how to play, set up, played all within our couple of hours hangout that we do. And it was so fun. And what was really great is we would pull cards. Like, I remember specifically when you pull diamonds, which are pentacles, when you pull diamonds, they are places that you can explore. And in this deck, they're called hazards, actually, just to make it even more confusing. But we had gotten a card, and the prompt in the game said that we were at a supermarket. And literally on the card, it was a supermarket. And I was like, there were several cards like that where, yeah, here it is. It was this one, this 9 of hazards. So the 9 of diamonds prompt in the game was that you're at a supermarket and you get to choose to explore it or pass it by, and maybe you encounter things. But we found that several times where whatever the card said was happening was almost like aligned with the visuals on the cards. And it was super fun. It was super fun. I'm going to stop gushing about it now, but it was a really good time. So I wanted to make sure and tell you guys about that. So this game, like I said, I have it digitally. I'll put a link to it down below if you're interested, especially if you have the zombie tarot and you just want to play. This was like such the perfect accompaniment. It was so fun. I'm definitely going to play it again on my own with the zombie tarot because it was a blast. It was a blast. And I have 2 copies of this game, actually. I have the original, which is just called Xylite, and then there's Xylite Dark Ages, which is obviously set in the Dark Ages. There's also a Xylite, I forget what it's called, but it's a Western, like a Western setting, Western cowboy kind of theme. But, oh my gosh, it was so fun. So, had to share that. Before I get back into another game that I played this month and finished, let me talk about the other deck that I worked with for myself in October, and that is the Trash Panda Tarot. I worked with this like the whole second half, I think, of September, and I just wanted to keep working with it in October. So in the early part of October, I was also still working with this until I flipped over to the Boo. This is such a great deck. It's so funny. It's so playful. It feels like it totally, if you're feeling like you're just a hot mess, this is the perfect deck. If you're feeling like you're just all over the place and scattered and you don't know up from down and you have this, oh my gosh, just use it. It's so great. I felt so seen, like every time I pulled this out. I was like, yep, that's about what I'm experiencing today. Yep. It always felt like it just spoke directly to my experience of that day. So fun. I can't wait to use it even more. It was a blast, and I highly recommend the Trash Panda Tarot. And I have no very specific affinity with raccoons, but there's something about the whole vibe of this, and I've talked about it before, but the whole vibe of this is just fabulous. It's so fun. Okay, that's it for decks that I worked with this month, but I have a book I finished, and I have another game I played. So I believe I talked about this a little bit. Obviously, I shared about it in the solo RPG or the solo game video that I made. But I finished my game of my playthrough of 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. I got to prompt 66 before my vampire met her untimely end. I guess timely because she was quite old. So her name was Claire. I think it was Claire. Yeah, it was Claire. And she just kept having some unfortunate instances where she just seemed to get more and more disconnected from the world. Eventually she burned things that were important to her. She just stopped. She sort of got lonely, I think, in near the end of her world or her life. I will say the safety warnings in solo games are worth heeding. I did not get upset by anything I read, but the character I was playing, her world just kind of got sadder. It wasn't super heavily violent. There was some violence for sure, but mostly it just kind of got sadder and more isolated over time. And I could see that being difficult for somebody if they're in a particular point in their life when maybe they're experiencing some loneliness. I could see that being a little heavy. It is a thing that's possible when you have a vampire who's literally getting this old and obviously is losing people over time and that kind of a thing. I thought that was really interesting, but I feel like I got to experience a story, even though I did very little actual writing in this. I mostly just kept track of the memories and the experiences. I kept my journaling pretty minimal, and I still felt very immersed in her story and what was happening to her. So this is really effective, I feel like, in a very easy solo game to play. And again, just beautiful. So really enjoyed that. I will definitely be playing another round of that in the future, but it was really fun for this season. I'm currently working on a game of Dwelling, which is a little bit ghosty, and I'm taking my time with that even though it's past Halloween, but it's perfect for this time of year. And then as far as the book I finished Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. This is the second book in the, what's it called? What's the series called? What is the series called? I forgot all of a sudden. Anyways, this one, the one that starts with Fourth Wing. It's got a name though. The series has a name. I just don't remember what the name is. I forget. Anyway, really enjoying this. This was great. I love this so much. I went through the entire book, and there's quite a lot of pages in here. 600. Is there 600? Hold on. I'm going to show you off camera so I don't spoil anything. 623 pages in Iron Flame, and I think I finished it in a week. Now, I'm currently reading Onyx Storm, which is the third book in the series, and I started it, I think I finished this in the first week of October, picked up Onyx Storm and have been reading it excruciatingly slowly. And I know myself. I know it's because this is a 5-book series and Onyx Storm is the third book in the series. There are going to be 5, but the other 2 aren't out yet. And so I think I'm dragging my feet because I don't want it to end. So I've been going through Onyx Storm very, very slowly. But this is a really excellent series. I really enjoy it and highly recommend. So finished that. But that's it, y'all. That is what I worked with in the month of October. It's been a little bit practice light for me this month. I had the things I worked with my members and my sort of foundational things in my practice, but I kept it pretty simple. I kept to simple daily draws. I didn't change my decks a lot. It's actually unusual for me in October. In October, I'm normally trying to make sure I personally work with all of these decks for myself as well. But I did get to use them all in member readings, which is great. And I just found that my energy level this month, it was just nicer to just cruise with basically 2 decks in my own personal draws, Trash Panda and then Boo Tarot for the entire month. That was exactly my speed. Even my bedtime practice, as I mentioned, was sort of simplified. And that was perfect. That was perfect. And I know that going into the darker months, I tend to be a little bit more chill in my practices. But then sometimes, usually around December-ish, I feel maybe January, I start to get real deep into it. So it just kind of depends. I'm trying to learn to continue to go with my energy and go with my flow and not worry if I'm not feeling this or that practice, but just kind of let it evolve as I go. And that's been great. So that is what I've been up to. Let me know down below. What have you been reading? What have you been enjoying? Have you been playing any games, video games, or board games, or like, I don't know, what have you been up to? Hobbies, what are you getting into as these months get darker and colder? And if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, I suppose, what are you getting into as your days are getting longer and warmer? I'd just be curious to hear what you're up to. In any case, thank you so much. As always, extra big thank you goes out to my Unicorn Fam channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You are the reason I got to play with all these fun decks this month because of our readings we do every month. And then of course, playing Xylite with you guys was so awesome. But anyways, thanks to all my members for supporting my work here. I appreciate you all so much, and I hope you're all enjoying our current deck study. To everyone watching this video, thank you so much for being here and being a part of everything I do here. Truly, I would not be doing this if I did not have so many fun people to chit chat with and engage with in the comments. So thank you for participating when you come to my channel, even if you're just watching. I love that so much. I appreciate you so much. And until next time, may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye.